pack your bags and follow the tracks. Open your minds and try new things, man.
Hey there!
Welcome to Hangzhou Youthcast.
We're here to bring you the coolest stories.
Listen to the ideas of international youth.
Coming to the realm of global youth cultural exchanges.
It's Hangzhou Youthcast.
It's Hangzhou Youthcast.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to today's Hangzhou Youthcast. I'm your host Ling Fei from the Communication University of Zhejiang. When you think of big movie countries, what country comes to mind? Nigeria was probably rarely mentioned, but this West African country does have one of the world's largest movie industries. It's also known as Nollywood. Today, we are thrilled to have Eric, an international student from Zimbabwe, to share his story with African film and Chinese film. Eric, could you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you for having me. Hello listeners, I am Tungamira Eric Mpona from Zimbabwe and I'm currently studying my PhD at Zhejiang University. I came to Hangzhou in 2017 and so it's been 7 years. I can say this is my 8th year of being here in Hangzhou, being in Zhejiang, and I'm currently studying international affairs and global governance.
Oh, you have been in Hangzhou for a long time. I just came to Hangzhou last year. So is Hangzhou the first place you choose to live for a long time?
Well, Hangzhou, yes. Hangzhou is the first place. Why? It's because when I came in 2017, I came directly to Hangzhou. Before I came to Hangzhou, I didn't know about Hangzhou.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, I didn't know much about Hangzhou. So what I knew was I was going to be studying in China. Mm-hmm. And so I did my application through an agent who helped me do the application. And so the agent recommended me to go for Zhejiang University of Science and Technology, which is where I did my bachelor's. And so it is after I came here, then I realized how beautiful the city of Hangzhou was, the majestic sceneries that you can see out there, and also the rich culture, which is well preserved, and also, the people themselves, they are also very welcoming. So I got to love the city after coming here. So after finishing my bachelor's, I decided to continue my studies, do my master's here. After I finished my master's, I continued to do my PhD. And so now, adding up 7 years, all have been spent in Hangzhou.
Yeah, that's why I chose to Hangzhou to have my master degree. May I say it is Hangzhou's culture, sceneries, and peoples draw you to live in Hangzhou?
I think so.
Yeah, we all know that in Hangzhou there are many beautiful sceneries, such like Xixi Wetland, and the West Lake, and also Ling Temple. As we all know, West Lake and Xixi Wetland are synthetic points for many movies and TV dramas, such as Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Do you know this?
Yeah.
卧虎藏龙.
Yes.
It's an action movie, and If You Are the One, it's also a movie. However, there are few films or TV dramas discussing the urban style of Hangzhou. It's all about sceneries or action at Hangzhou. And so today I would like to recommend a movie to you. It's called 春江水暖.
春江水暖.
Yes. Its name comes from an ancient Chinese poem called 春江水暖鸭先知.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it means that the dark knows first when the river becomes warm in spring. Could you please say it again with me? 春江水暖鸭先知.
春江水暖鸭先知.
Wow, sounds great. You are very good in Chinese.
Well, I like doing, poems, like poetry, reciting Chinese poems. And one of my favorite poems is 忆江南，
忆江南，yeah.
江南好，
哇
风景
就如，
对。
Wow, you're very good in Chinese. To be honest, I have seen many foreigners. You are the best one.
No, not really. I'm
You
still learning the language. I mean, it's it is a bit complicated. It takes time.
Yeah,
and
takes
efforts
time.
to really master the language. So I think by learning the language, I can be able to understand this city more.
Yeah.
I can be able to understand the people here and to know China better. Yeah.
Yeah, you seem to have the point. Tell back to this film.
Yeah.
This film not only shows the beautiful sceneries along the Fuchun River in Hangzhou, but it also depicts the 4 seasons of an ordinary Hangzhou family. You can see some life of the Hangzhou people in this film. Eric, I have read some reports shows that African friends usually watch movies through radio tapes or DVDs. Besides that, do you also come in to connect with movies or TV shows through other ways?
Well, we have had this way of watching movies through DVDs and video tapes. I'm sure China also had those experiences before. So that was well before we had the development of new digital technologies. So we used to watch most of our movies, most of our films, most of our series on those DVDs and the video tapes. But nowadays things have changed.
What happened?
We have new technologies, and I mean we are all watching movies, we are all watching series on these digital televisions. So they make use of satellite dishes. So satellite dishes, I'm sure you know what satellite dishes are. They are designed to receive signals, and now you feed that signal into digital televisions, and that's what we are using to watch movies. And besides that, there are a lot of applications now that you can make use of, digital applications, digital apps that you can have on your phone. You just watch a movie, you just watch a series on your phone. Like, we have Western ones like Netflix. We also even have the Chinese ones like Star Times.
Star Times,
yeah.
Oh.
Star Times, it's a very huge Chinese broadcasting company that has been operating in China for several years now. It got into the African market in 2002, and so they have been doing a lot of work and basically focusing on this broadcasting market. And they have their own application, Star Times. You can watch movies through that. So we have various ways of watching movies now. We have a lot of ways now.
Yeah, it sounds like Star Times makes more ways for you and your friends and more African to know all over the world things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. Star Times, Netflix, and many other platforms now, they've made it quite easier for us to browse, to watch movies online. Like nowadays, you don't even need to be seated behind your TV to watch a series. You just take your phone, and then that's all you need. You can watch your series there. You can watch your movies there, which is pretty much convenient.
Yes, through the phones, we can get many informations more convenient.
Yeah.
Tune into Hangzhou.
Discover the world.
Hangzhou Youthcast.
Do you know Douyin?
Yeah, I know Douyin.
I know it is called TikTok in foreigner.
Yeah.
Do you use it?
TikTok is very famous in, abroad. That's the international version of Douyin, and many Africans like using TikTok as well. But personally, I'm not someone who is into really short video applications. But I know that it has become a very a big source of entertainment for many African young people, and some have actually turned it into their entrepreneurial platform. Like they become celebrities, TikTok celebrities, by posting short fun videos, and then because of that they monetize, and they've found their way out to make some money. So it's actually also a way, like through TikTok you can also get to watch what is happening around the world. It's a different way of using visuals, right? I mean, films and series, all these are sort of long visuals that requires a lot of time, but if you're watching those short videos like on TikTok and many other platforms, you get to see a lot of information in very short videos, which is very informative at times.
Yeah, it's really a good way for us to use TikTok or some apps or like this to know some information more quickly. I previously watched a TV drama called Welcome to Milele Village, which tells the story of a Chinese medical team providing medical assistance in Africa. This TV drama allowed me to witness the vast and magnificent grasslands, as well as the warm and friendly people of Africa. I remember that in the second series of that TV shows, a police stopped their bus. When I think he will punish them, he didn't. He just taught them how to dance. So I think Africa is always very warm and friendly. But to be honest, many Chinese people still have some misunderstandings about Africa. Could you recommend some channels, films, or documentaries that can help us understand the real Africa more objectively?
Oh, well, yes. The movie that you talked about, or the series that you mentioned, Welcome to Milele, Welcome to Milele Village, I watched it too, and I found it very interesting. The way it captured a very vivid story of how the Chinese are getting into the African continent. It was a very touching story because it's based on true stories of Chinese medical doctors who went into Africa on aid program to provide medical aid to many African countries, and so they created that Milele Village was actually where the whole series would happen. And that scene that you mentioned of a policeman who was dancing in the middle of the road and then stopped the vehicle that was carrying the medical doctors and asked, somehow asked the driver to come down, and they had some conversations. It was actually very interesting. So if I'm to recommend one African movie that would capture the real Africa, or maybe provide a different narrative of Africa, it's actually very difficult because Africa has, is a huge continent. It's the second largest continent after Asia, and it has 54 African countries. So that means we have 54 different cultures from 54 different countries, 54 different ways of doing things. So now, if you would want to have a movie that captures 54 different cultures,
sounds like
it is very difficult. It is very difficult. It's very difficult. So what I would want to do is I would then recommend Nollywood. You mentioned Nollywood at the beginning of this podcast. So Nollywood is one of the largest movie industries at the moment. Nollywood, after Hollywood and Bollywood, they've been doing a very great job.
And actually, as I know, it is the third largest.
Third largest movie industry in the world. And Nollywood has been employing a lot of people in Nigeria. I mean, it's the second largest employer after agriculture for their economy, and that tells you that they've been investing a lot into the movie industry. They've been producing a lot of movies and also employing a lot of talents into their into their industry. And most of their movies, they are written by Africans, they are directed by Africans and produced by Africans. So that actually makes them more African than other movies.
African.
Than other movies that you might have had before. Of course, I know Hollywood does a very good job of trying to tell African stories, but sometimes because these stories are being told from an outsider's perspective, and so it doesn't really capture the intricacies of African societies and the complexities there. So now what happens is that you'd then need the African perspective to African stories. So Nollywood would be the best platform for those who are interested, to all listeners who are listening this podcast. I really suggest that they can follow Nollywood, I mean. And of course there are other film industries in Africa that are well developed. South Africa has also very great movies that I've watched before. So I mean, you would need a comparison. I mean, you watch these different topics, and would give you different understandings on African society, Africa's development, African people, and African culture. One of the recent movies that I think I can recommend from Nigeria is it's called The Lionheart. Lionheart, yeah.
Lionheart. I haven't.
It talks
heard
about a lady who was fighting for her father's estate, like trying to protect her father's business, and she had this entrepreneurial spirit. And so it tells the story of how in Nigeria, things have been changing, and women has been given a very critical role to play in the society, contrary to other narratives that we hear that of having problems of gender balances and all of that. But the movie tells a totally different story, and the scenes that you see in that movie are quite modern, and so also very different from other narratives that you get. Because what happens is most of the current movies from Nollywood, from Hollywood, or from Western movie producers, what they try to do is that their stories are based on wars, ethnic conflicts, famine, hunger, whereby in those movies Africa is portrayed as very, 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 very poor, and people struggling. These are the kind of stories that they want, and that they think would capture a huge audience. And for real, it does. A lot of people are interested in watching those things. I think it's very, very interesting. But what it does is that unconsciously it creates a very bad image of Africa in those viewers' mindsets. So now it is the time that big industries like Nollywood should try to fill in the gap. That's why I recommend people can also watch Nollywood movies. But of course, even in Nollywood movies, some of them also, they've got that influence of Western storytellers, of trying to tell bad stories about Africa. But they're doing it not intentionally, not knowing that is how impactful their movies are, because they create a very wrong image of the continent on the minds of those who are watching them. So I recommend really follow Nollywood, follow South African movie industry, follow also even North Africa, like Egypt, Morocco. They might have some also very good movies. So what needs to be done when you are trying to understand Africa through movies and series is that you need to at least West Africa, watch a movie based on that, North Africa, Southern Africa, Central Africa, Eastern Africa. So now you can have a comprehensive understanding of African society. So you need different movie industries combined together. Maybe that's how you can get a better understanding of Africa, because one way might not really help you.
Yeah, I think you're very great. May I say that if you want to know Africa more objectively, you need to see the movies or documentaries made by African.
Yes.
Made by African, written by African, or acting by African.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because why am I saying that? There are a lot of movies out there that when you see them, you think they are very African, right? Because maybe it's just like the main actor is an African, but the story itself, it doesn't portray a very good image of Africa, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I emphasize produced by Africans, written by Africans, and directed by Africans. Right?
Yes.
So that actually is the African story, not the stories that are being told by others who have a different objective. There are many interesting movies out there that talk about Africa. Everybody has been watching Black Panther, that created an African hero, right? I watched Black Panther. I think it is actually very interesting, but actually it can't change your perspective on Africa because it's a visual story. That place doesn't exist. Like, you can just feel like, oh well, this is very fictional.
Yes.
So now we need beyond that. We need documentaries. We need more series that can really let you feel, wow, oh, these scenes were really taken in Africa.
Yes.
And that actually would potentially change your perspective on the continent. Yeah.
Your sentence make me think of the words we last talked about. 春江水暖鸭先知. It also means that you need, if you want to know something, you must go into it.
Yeah, and I know in China this is one thing that they really emphasize, right? There are many Chinese proverbs or idioms that talk about if you want to really know something, really you have to get into it.
Yes.
I usually talk about one phrase by Wenpu Ruijian, like hearing from someone 100 times can't be better than seeing once. So seeing once is better than hearing it from others 100 times. So what I think is that's the same way that viewers who want to really understand Africa should adopt. Don't just because it is actually very interesting. The pictures, the storyline really matters. Who wrote that storyline and for what reason?
Tune into Hangzhou.
Discover the world.
Hangzhou Youthcast.
Right. So now what I really enjoy is myself watching Chinese movies. Before I didn't used to watch movies a lot. But then what happened was when I came to China, I realized that really understanding the Chinese society, you can also use movies, you can also use series. So what I do is I watch different topics for different purposes. I watch movies that has to do with Chinese culture. I've watched COT, The Journey to the West. It talks about this story is based on Chinese mythology. It's based on a very influential literature that was written during the Ming Dynasty. So it helps you to understand China's folk culture. It helps you understand Chinese mythology. Isn't it good? And also, besides these sort of movies that has cultural significance, I've also watched modern ones that talks about the Chinese modern societies, how China has developed, how China is governed, how the Chinese economy has changed over the past years. I've watched Hangzhou Xixi Wetland. This is one of the series that I think I enjoyed the most. Although it was shot back then, but then I like the storyline because it also talks about Zhejiang. It talks about Hangzhou, and I've heard that Zhejiang people have this entrepreneurial spirit and how they've managed to build these very strong SMEs. So from that series, I could understand a lot. And recently I've also watched Wai Jiao Feng Yun, which is a series that talks about China's diplomatic history, and they've helped me. So now, looking at those movies and series, I've got to understand that, well, movies have a very huge role to play, especially in fostering, understanding, a cultural understanding, a contemporary understanding among viewers who are watching those movies. Movies have a certain narrative that they will be trying to portray. And so it is actually very important that big movie industries that we have on the continent in Africa, like Nollywood, like South African movie industry, they take African stories really serious. Don't treat movies as just a source of entertainment, but also as a medium for national branding, a medium for actually creating a very right image or beautiful image of the African continent. And so this is very important, because this is what I've seen, especially when watching these Chinese movies. This is what I've gotten. Well, they have a certain message that they're trying to portray. And besides that, I've also seen a very new trend nowadays, where, well, there are Chinese movie makers that have really taken African continent so serious that they've seen Africa not only as the destination for their movies, like to go and broadcast their movies in Africa, but they've seen African continent as I would say source of the content for some of their movies, whereby they are now leveraging on these friendship relations that we have between China and African countries. They're now telling stories through their movies. I have watched, I think, one of the most famous Chinese movies and very influential movies. It's Zhanlang. Zhanlang. Like the second Zhanlang, it has scenes that were shot in Africa, right?
Yeah,
it has a part that it is talking about, peace building in Africa, and how China has been playing a very important role, and how China is viewed amongst Africans there. So it somehow talks about China's image amongst Africans, which is a very, very good and appealing story. So this is a very huge opportunity for Chinese movie makers to explore on the continent. Besides that, I've also watched. It is it's called Red Sea something. I forgot the full name of the movie, but it is also one of the most influential Chinese movies in recent times. I mean, on the global scale. It was shot in Morocco, and it employed more than 400 Moroccans during the production. So, well, I can see that more and more Chinese movie makers are really seeing that there is a very huge opportunity to tell African stories from a Chinese perspective, or China-Africa stories from also a Chinese perspective. So now it's time for African storytellers, African movie producers, to also tell African stories from African perspective, China-Africa stories from an African perspective. Just like Nollywood, they should leverage on their impact now on the global scale, being third largest movie industry. Now they should tap into really, let's also see Nollywood movies in Chinese movie houses. Let's see Nollywood movies on Chinese movie platforms. I think that would be a very good start. So yeah, we're looking forward to that, and I think it would actually make a very huge impact, and it would be of great significance.
Tune into Hangzhou.
Discover the world.
Hangzhou Youthcast.
We just talk about African movies in China. I want to ask you about Chinese movies in Africa. Do you usually watch some Chinese movie in Africa?
Yeah, there are a lot. As I was growing up from a very young age, when I was doing my primary education, we used to watch a lot of Chinese movies, especially the kung fu movies from Jackie Chan.
Oh, Jackie Chan, I like him very much.
And Jet Li. All of those movies were very, 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 very famous in many African countries. So I would say my first image of China was shaped by those movies. From that time, I started having a very good impression about China. I was like, okay, if there is an opportunity, then I would definitely have to go and see it myself.
Yes.
So besides that, nowadays, there are a lot of ways, as I was saying in the beginning of the podcast, that now we can use our cell phones to watch movies, to watch series. Nowadays, it's very convenient to watch these things.
Yes.
So now that makes it easier for Chinese movies to be seen on the continent. And I was talking about Star Times. Star Times, they've been doing a very good job of making sure that the Chinese movies are also distributed on the African continent. So what they've been doing is, besides providing hard infrastructure, because they are a very big company that invests in provision of satellite dishes and satellites that they send into space now which is part of the digital infrastructure that you need for digital broadcasting, for digital television that I was talking about. They are also into content production, and their content production also includes translating Chinese movies into local languages. So this localization, they've done it so well. So you can watch COG, you can watch The Journey to the West in Africa, but not the Chinese version.
In your local
language. Usually Swahili, Hausa, English, French. So Swahili, because most of East African countries, they speak Swahili. So they now can do voice over in Swahili. And now when you watch COG in Swahili, it is even more appealing, because you can, for those people who are in the villages, they can easily understand. If they haven't had mastered foreign languages like mastering English, at least they can understand those movies just in Swahili. So they've been doing a very good job dubbing. They take all those classic movies, classic series and great movies, translate them into local languages. A very good job. And also they've actually been also carrying out some projects. Like I know in 2015, during the FOCAC summit that was held in Johannesburg, Chinese government pledged to partner with African countries in providing digital infrastructure for TVs in 10,000 villages in Africa. So now that project has been ongoing for a long time, and Star Times have been at the forefront of implementation of that project. So now they've actually helped some people in the villages to be able to watch these digital televisions. And what happens is they have more than 60 channels, and I would say 80% of their channels are free.
Free?
Yeah, you can watch for free.
Wow.
So the remaining percentage is what you have to pay, maybe sports and blah blah. But then there are certain channels that are free. So you can watch some Chinese movies for free on some of their channels. So they've been doing a very wonderful job and very welcomed there. And actually they are also embracing the local content, right? I was talking about Nollywood. They actually have a specific channel for Nollywood movies. So if you are using their TV products, then on Star Times you can select Nollywood, you can watch Nollywood on Star Times, even on the phone. So this is how Chinese movies are entering the African market. They are entering the African market through these broadcasting companies like Star Times. They are entering the African market through the modern technologies like the use of applications on the phones. You can watch those Chinese movies on Star Times applications. If you are in East Africa and other African countries, you can watch even on Netflix, the Western applications. So, well, I would say that now Chinese movies, Chinese series, finding their place on the African continent. Yeah.
Companies like Star Times play a good role in culture connection.
Yes, they are playing a very critical role in cultural exchanges.
I think I will watch more movies made by Nollywood in the future. Nollywood. Important things I will say 3 times. Times fly when we are having fun. For coming to our program, Eric. Through today's conversation with Eric, I also learned a lot about the difference between Chinese and African movies. I also learned a lot about the differences between Chinese and African movies and other artistic works in showcasing each other's cultures, as well as many things that I had not previously understood, such as the Star Times. Thank you again, Eric, for coming to our program. See you next time.
See you next time, and thanks for having me.
Tune into Hangzhou.
Discover the world.
Hangzhou Youthcast.